Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that the world never imagined would unfold so quickly, so dramatically, and with such far-reaching consequences. For more than a decade, Crimea stood at the center of one of the world's most volatile geopolitical disputes. It was the flashpoint that ignited confrontation, shaped alliances, and drew global attention like a magnet. And now, in a turn of events so monumental that it has sent shockwaves through every major capital, Crimea is back under Ukraine's control. This isn't simply a military victory. It is a seismic, political, strategic, and symbolic moment that will be discussed for generations. In this video, we explore how the unthinkable happened, what triggered the collapse of Russian control, and how Ukraine executed one of the most daring, unexpected, and decisive operations of modern era. For years, the idea of retaking Crimea seemed nearly impossible. It was heavily fortified, politically entrenched, symbolically loaded, and strategically vital. Russia's Black Sea Fleet operated from its ports, intelligence networks were deeply embedded, and every road, bridge, and entry point was fortified with layers of defenses. Many analysts insisted that Crimea would be the final, most difficult piece of any negotiation, a region that would require years of diplomacy or costly warfare to restore. But Ukraine never abandoned its claim. From the moment Crimea was annexed, Ukraine made it clear that the peninsula was an inseparable part of its identity, its history, and its sovereignty. Even during years of hardship, conflict, and instability, the dream of reclaiming Crimea remained alive in the hearts of Ukrainians, passed from one generation to the next. The turning point began long before the world realized it. Quiet operations, intelligence gathering, and clandestine coordination set the stage for something far bigger than any single military maneuver. Ukrainian intelligence services began mapping Russian weaknesses, tracking supply lines, and identifying vulnerabilities that had been overlooked for years. What appeared to be simple drone strikes, minor sabotage operations, or disrupted logistics were, in reality, the opening moves of a long-term strategy designed to slowly suffocate Russian control. Every fuel depot destroyed, every command center targeted, and every bridge rendered unusable chipped away at the foundation of Moscow's grip over the peninsula. Meanwhile, local resistance networks inside Crimea began to grow bolder. Graffiti, protests, sabotage, and intelligence leaks multiplied. Crimean Tatars, long oppressed under occupation, became a powerful voice of resistance, providing critical information to Ukrainian forces and keeping the spirit of defiance alive. By the time large-scale operations began, Russia's defenses were already strained. The war on other fronts consumed manpower, equipment, and political attention. Sanctions created economic pressure, global isolation crippled diplomatic maneuvering, and internal political divisions weakened strategic planning. Ukraine recognized this rare moment, a moment when opportunity, preparation, and timing aligned. And when the operation began, it moved with a speed and precision that stunned military analysts around the world. The first phase targeted command and communication networks. Ukraine deployed drones in massive swarms, overwhelming radar defenses and striking key communication facilities. These weren't random attacks. Each was selected to confuse, isolate, and blind the occupying forces. Without stable communication, Russian units couldn't coordinate effectively. Commanders were left guessing about the scale and location of Ukraine's movements. Panic spread rapidly. Soldiers, isolated and unsure of reinforcements, began pulling back without orders. The psychological shock of losing control so suddenly began to ripple across the peninsula. Simultaneously, Ukrainian special forces launched covert missions to cut off transportation and supply routes. Roads linking Crimea to mainland Russia were ambushed, bridges taken out with precision missiles, and rail lines sabotaged by local resistance fighters who coordinated with Ukrainian intelligence. The famous Kerch Bridge, long regarded as one of the strongest symbols of Russian power in Crimea, became a prime target. While not completely destroyed, its structural integrity was weakened enough to restrict heavy movements. Fuel shortages spread, ammunition supplies dwindled, and Russian units found themselves scrambling to defend key positions with limited resources. As infrastructure crumbled and defenses weakened, Ukraine began advancing from multiple directions. Armored columns moved in from the north, naval drones penetrated coastal defenses, airborne units secured key choke points. It wasn't a single concentrated attack, but a multi-directional blitz that overwhelmed defenders who couldn't determine the primary axis of advance. This confusion became a strategic advantage for Ukraine. Russian troops were forced to retreat from position after position, unable to regroup, unable to communicate, and unable to secure stable ground. As the Ukrainian flag began appearing in more towns and villages across Crimea, the world watched in real time. Videos from civilians showed Ukrainian units entering previously occupied territories, welcomed by crowds waving flags, crying, rushing to embrace soldiers they never expected to see again. In places like Simferopol and Bakhchisarai, people celebrated in the streets, chanting for liberation, filming emotional reunions, and expressing hope that had been suppressed for more than a decade. Crimean Tatars, who had endured years of persecution, arrests, and repression, emerged from hiding to openly support the returning forces. Their joy was overwhelming and deeply symbolic, marking not just a military victory but a moral and cultural triumph. International reactions came swiftly. World leaders convened emergency meetings, trying to understand the implications. NATO officials praised Ukraine's strategic brilliance, while others urged restraint to avoid escalation. Russia's government reacted with disbelief, anger, and denial. Official statements attempted to downplay the situation, but footage on social media exposed the truth. Crimea was slipping out of their hands faster than anyone expected. Domestically, the shock in Russia was unprecedented. Russian media struggled to explain how a region once declared eternally Russian had been lost in a matter of days. Protests, rare but symbolic, broke out in several cities, fueled by frustration over leadership decisions, military failures, and the heavy cost of a war that many believed had no clear purpose. Anymore, inside Crimea, the final phase of Ukraine's operation sealed the outcome. Ukrainian forces breached Sevastopol, the heart of Russia's military presence on the peninsula. The Black Sea Fleet, long considered a symbol of Russian naval power, began evacuating ships, abandoning positions, and retreating under heavy pressure. Ukrainian drones targeted floating docks, missile systems, and patrol vessels, creating chaos among fleeing units. The sight of Russian warships pulling back from Sevastopol shocked military analysts worldwide. For years, the port was considered one of Russia's most secure strongholds. Now it was falling under Ukrainian control faster than any prediction model had imagined. And then, the moment that changed everything, Ukrainian forces entered central Sevastopol, raising their flag over administrative buildings while crowds flooded the streets. The cheers, the tears, the overwhelming emotional outpouring created scenes that instantly spread across the internet. News channels ran the footage nonstop. Analysts declared it one of the most surprising military outcomes of the 21st century. The phrase "unthinkable happens" became a global headline, but victory did not come without challenges. Ukraine faced immediate responsibilities: securing infrastructure, preventing sabotage, restoring services, and managing the reintegration of a region that had been under occupation for a decade. Yet, despite these obstacles, the overwhelming sentiment among Crimeans was relief and hope. Schools reopened under new administration. Local councils began restructuring, Crimean Tatar cultural centers reopened, Ukrainian police restored order, preventing looting and maintaining stability. The global implications of this moment are enormous. Russia's influence in the Black Sea region has been severely weakened. International alliances have shifted. New diplomatic conversations have emerged. Countries that once doubted Ukraine's ability to reclaim its territories are now reassessing their positions. The operation has redefined modern warfare, proving that strategy, intelligence, and adaptability can overcome even heavily fortified positions. Across Ukraine, celebrations erupted. Cities lit up with fireworks, families reunited. Veterans embraced one another, overwhelmed by the reality that Crimea, long a painful memory, was now a symbol of triumph. But beneath the celebrations lies a deeper understanding. This victory came through sacrifice, resilience, and unwavering determination. And it marks the beginning of a new chapter, not the end of the journey. As Ukraine works to stabilize Crimea, rebuild trust, and restore normalcy, the world continues to analyze how an operation once considered impossible became a historic success. What happened in Crimea will be studied in military academies, debated in parliaments, and remembered by millions as the day the world witnessed something extraordinary. Ukraine has not only reclaimed land, it has reclaimed its narrative, its dignity, and its place in history. And the message sent to the world is clear: determination, courage, and unity can achieve what once seemed unthinkable. This moment will be remembered for decades, a powerful reminder that history is not written by predictions, but by people willing to defy them.